Dude, that music.
Whoa, we're going again. We're going again. Wait, we have this epic
music's
countdown.
so
It's like
good.
10 seconds. I know. It's the best. Hey, guys. Welcome.
Makes you want to jive.
My name is Brandon Leon. I'm a local realtor here in the Sacramento region. I'm joined by Keith Collins, a market leader here in the Sacramento region. He's a lender by trade. He knows a little bit about finance, a little bit about money, a little bit about helping you plan for the future financially, which is pretty cool. But we are here for the Sacramento real estate housing update, a market update for December 2022. So we're excited. There's so much to cover. And I think what's cool is we're going to cover both sides today. We're going to talk about the doom and gloom that we're hearing, but we're also going to talk about some positive things, which I think is important.
Sky is falling.
Stick with us to the end, because we're going to talk about interest rates. We're going to talk about some really positive things to look forward to in 2023, and we're excited to share that with you. So if you guys are just joining us, just feel free to hit that thumbs up and or even just comment. Let us know you're here. We'd love to hear your questions throughout this time. We'll take some time to answer some questions. So some of the things that we'll be covering today, we'll be talking about the percentage of the rate changes that are coming. We'll be talking about the percentage of houses that have concessions here in the Sacramento area. We'll be talking about how much the house prices have declined. We're going to share some just crazy stats with you. So super excited about this show. Keith is going to cover some really cool stats. I think you could look at it regionally, but then some in our area as well. So let's kind of jump
we got some really cool stuff happen tomorrow. There's a big day in the market tomorrow that we're all excited for. So we got some good stuff.
Yeah. Beautiful. So I think there's a lot of people that are on this like dopamine high of negative outlook of the real estate market.
They're on a dopamine high of negativity.
Yeah, weird, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't even make sense. Yeah. But there's so many stats and there's so many memes and there's so many stories coming out that are super negative right now about what's happening in the market. And yeah, if you look at the numbers alone, you don't look at everything that's going on in the region, you look at the numbers, you might get a little discouraged. But you have the optimists and you have the pessimists. I think we need to know what's going on in the market as far as the numbers, but then we also need to know all of the other outlook. There's a lot of other factors involved. And so we actually have this really funny picture of buyers and sellers in the market that we want to put up. That's actually kind of funny. Let's see if we can get that graphic up. I know.
I can see it. It is really good. Is
he the other one
up? Nope, the other one.
Prices are going to be higher next year. We're getting there. All right. Either way, you have buyers that are applauding the market. You have buyers that are super excited. You have the sellers that are like, I don't want to hear that the prices have gone down. I want to be in denial, which is somewhat true. And you have the market just screaming at you, just all these different things going on. And so these three different perspectives, and I think there's opportunity in all of them, but really understanding, you're looking from your point of view, whether you're a buyer or a seller of, you look at things through a certain lens. And so, there's a few things we kind of want to cover, that we have interest rates that came down recently. And I think whenever the interest rates change, people get super excited. Like Keith, you can speak to this, that whenever they see a glimpse of hope in the interest rates, it's like, could this be a market turn? Can you speak more to that a little bit?
Yeah, if we think about this, right, like if we look at like what changed in the market, I don't think people are losing jobs, significantly in the marketplace, right? There's been job transition, but we're not, the unemployment rate locally is still extremely low. There's still tons of positions that are open. People are still getting raises. What changed was interest rates, really. Interest rates went from too low, right? I did a 1.9% 15-year fix for a client. Like the rate started in the ones. Interest rates were just too low, and it was a shock to the system. And doing this for 18 years, and we had the fastest interest rate increase that I've seen, and I think it was one of the fastest on record. We went from 2.5% interest rates to 7.5% interest rates within a year, and really the fast climb was in like 6 months. And so it was a shock to the system.
Yeah.
And I think we all kind of think about negativity, right? And whenever something happens right now in the markets, we go back to 2008, and everybody thinks that that's just going to happen all over again. And I think there's a lot of things that are different, right? And one being, this isn't a market collapsing like that. Like 2008 was a global collapse, right? We've seen interest rates that have pushed up, and it's caused affordability to go out of whack. And I get that, right? I get that. I mean, we've lost almost $200,000 in purchasing power with interest rates moving up. But they're going to come back down, and they have a lot. And 2 weeks ago they dipped down into the fives, and this week they just dipped down to the fives again. So, we were in the mid sevens, looked like they were charging to eights, and now all of a sudden we're back in 5%. And man, I'll take a 5% rate all day long. 2% was too low. That's just not reality.
Yeah. And when we're looking at it, I think it comes down to an affordability.
Yep,
From the
absolutely.
buyer's perspective of how much can I afford, and if we take the thought of the 2.5 interest rates out of it, and we just look at where interest rates are normally, if you were to look over the past 10 years, in the fives is fair. And so the affordability, I mean, do you believe that the market is directly affected by our ability to have more affordable housing? Would you say that would be accurate?
I think
In a
so, for
positive
sure.
way?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, if homes are more affordable, people are going to be able to bid up and qualify for them. So, I mean, the market is absolutely affected by affordability and having affordable housing.
And so we have a volume shortage, right? We have a
Absolutely.
lot less houses. It's very evident. We're going to go over the numbers here in a minute. So do you think where the interest rates are going to be maybe Q2, Q3 of 2023, do you think that's going to be enough to bring the volume back?
I think it is. I mean, I think a few things are going to happen. One, we're just going to get used to it. I mean, that's a thing, right? Like, we're not going to go live in boxes. I mean, real estate is a thing. You're going to rent, you're going to go live with your family, right? You're going to go live with the family, you're going to rent, or you're going to buy a house. So you have three options, but it's all related to being in housing, and rents are super high. Housing's super high. I think, could we maybe make a case to say, hey, like, let's just take away the COVID real estate market away. And I think that's kind of where we're going there from that is, a lot of the increase that we saw during COVID has been eliminated with some of the price depreciation, and interest rates are kind of back to where they were before. I mean, it was, that was nuts. And so,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
but looking at this, right, like if we get interest rates back into the fives, and home prices have dropped in the Sacramento market, in some cases 10-15%, I think we move back into affordability.
Great.
Significantly. I mean, I think it's unreasonable for buyers to sit around and think that interest rates are going to back in the twos or threes. That's just not something. But
Sure.
Where 5% interest rates occur is you get the sellers that are sitting there with a 2.5% interest rate that want to move up, and they're not like, screw this, I'm not going to 7. They're like, okay, I can probably make 5% work. And so I think it just provides a lot more opportunity to the marketplace. 5% is a magic number, and I think we're moving towards that. Today we had a great day in the market. The inflation. So inflation is the driver. Outside of the Federal Reserve jumping in and actually buying mortgages and forcing interest rates lower, inflation's the driver. As goes inflation, as goes interest rates, right? Inflation went through the roof, rates went through the roof. Inflation's starting to come down, interest rates are going to come down with it. And so, and my case for that is, today we had year-over-year core inflation numbers came out, and they were decreasing, and interest rates rallied and they dropped back into the fives, which is awesome. 2 weeks ago, the Federal Reserve said, I think inflation is starting to subside, and we may not need to take these aggressive hikes that we've been taking. And we saw the single largest interest rate drop in a day on record. And all it was the Federal Reserve saying inflation's starting to come down. So as inflation continues to come down, rates will come down with it. And I think opportunity will come back into the market. But maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here, but this market's different. It's way different. I saw this stat here, and we're going to talk about it. 1.9% of homes, all homes in America, less than 2% of homes in America are actually still underwater, even with this price decline. Pre-bubble, it was 25%. It's different. It's different. It doesn't feel good. It's not awesome, but it's different.
But it's all perspective. To your point, it's all perspective on looking at previous markets, and now we're in a different type of market. And the sooner everyone gets on the same page of what to expect in this market, and it's all new, you know,
Right.
and it's getting used to something different. So that's the way
Yeah.
every market
But I mean,
starts. And so
yeah.
I'm cautioning people, but I think this is where a professional comes into play, where they can ask you questions, you know, thought-provoking questions, to figure out if right now is the right time for you to buy or sell, you know, in general. And so the truth is the market's still moving, right? We're missing some buyers here. There's a shortage of buyers for obvious reasons. Prices have dropped way faster than normal, and houses are taking longer to sell. So I don't believe that sellers are really up to speed on the pricing yet. I think that sellers have fallen a little bit behind, and that's one of the reasons why uh, they're kind of stuck on the prices of, you know, March, April. But they're not rushing to list either, because they're kind of waiting, hoping. I think a lot of conversations I have, just hoping for the market to recover, where they can hopefully, you know, get more money when it is time to sell their house. But there are a portion of them that are starting to listen. If you look at this graph of the percentage of sales with concessions just in Sacramento County alone, you know, as we look at this graph, we'll bring up here in just a minute. You know, 49.4% of closed sales in Sacramento County had concessions last month. Okay. So we have numbers for November. So we're looking at October numbers really, but
What's a concession? Let's talk about that though. What's a
yeah,
concession?
exactly. 49.4% of closed sales in Sacramento had concessions last month. So this means nearly half of all sales had some sort of credit. So we're talking about credit for repairs. We're talking about closing cost credits, credits to buy the rate down, things like that. You know, carpet credits, things like that. Those are concessions. So we saw half of the houses in Sacramento County have
The sellers
concessions.
coming to the table and contributed in some way, in some fashion. Half.
Absolutely. And so, you know, that begs the question, when you're a seller, you know, what's more important to you? You know, making the most money, or continually, I don't know, isn't really a good question, but what I mean to say is, when we're looking at from a seller perspective, there are many sellers that aren't open to concessions. So
Yeah.
being open to concessions gives you an opportunity to make more money, plain and simple, rather than doing these large reductions. And if you're open to concessions at the beginning, if you're coming to the table and saying, "All right, I'm willing, I'm open," I think deals can be made faster, and the market can move a little bit quicker, and the seller will ultimately make more money.
Agreed. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, I think there's a lot of opportunity on both sides of the table for concessions. I mean, there's a marketing strategy there. You know, I was talking with the buyer on the phone before we got onto this, and the buyer was saying, "Hey, like, I haven't even negotiated, and the sellers, you know, are already offering a financing package that's going to buy my interest rate down 2%." So that's really cool, and they're excited about that home because of that offering. Right? They're talking about that home because of that offering, not that home because it's got the pool that they want, or it's got the square footage that they want, or the school district, but because it's got that offering which relates to affordability. So, you know, sellers coming to the table and offering those types of creative strategies. Hope is not a strategy. I heard you say hope a few times, right? Like, and I'm not suggesting that you believe hope is a strategy, right? But like, you know, I'm hoping for this or hoping for that. Hope is not a strategy. We need to put strategies in place to sell houses and buy houses.
Yeah.
And and so having a strategy in place to provide more affordability to sellers is awesome. And then from a buyer standpoint, like, it's wild when I'm seeing buyers being able to negotiate right now. Properties appraising over value, getting all their closing costs paid, getting credit cards paid at close, and getting carpet credits. I mean, it's a pretty interesting window of time right now for buyers.
Yeah. So we're going to be giving, towards the end of this video, we'll be giving actual buyer and seller tips to take advantage of the
Okay.
market right now. So we're going to get there. Everything you said is 100% correct. And so that'll be one of our seller tips later, which is really cool. So the next thing we're going to cover, prices have declined 3 times faster than usual. So I think that's kind of where you're hearing a lot of stories around, is how quickly prices have come down. You know, if we look at the median price since the pandemic, just even in the Sacramento region, we're looking at that, and we have, you know, towards March, 440,000. March of 2020, we have $440,000 Now this is the median, of course, but then we get upwards of June, July of 2022 at 625, and then now we're back down at 550. Now Sacramento region is a pretty big region. We're talking about Sacramento, Placer, Yolo, and El Dorado County, but some people might look at those stats and just be completely alarmed. But we're looking at every house, right? We're looking at everything except for condos, all single family residents. So it's a wide range. I think these numbers are important to even just look at, just to know the volatility of pricing, and how that's having effect on the market right now.
Agreed, man. Agreed. It's interesting. There's opportunity, but it's interesting for sure. I mean, look at that median price since the pandemic, that decline. It's a big one.
And really, as you see the prices really jump in February of 2022, right? You have this like 5-6 month period of it higher than the rest of the pricing, and it was getting to a point to where it wasn't sustainable. And I remember us doing even market updates like this back then, of talking about buyers paying $50,000 or $100,000 over the list price, and having appraisal issues, and having all of these different issues.
It's wild. It couldn't continue. It got so hot that it has to cool off.
Right.
It has to. It was unhealthy.
And so, looking at some stats that we're going to cover here in just a minute, just looking at, even though the prices have gone down, there's still equity available to many, many people, which we'll cover here in a minute. So,
what's interesting too is when I look at this graph, as I look at the median price since the pandemic, if I'm lining this up right, it looks like May is really kind of the start of the drop at the 625, and then it steps down one more line. That's May, and May rates are about 5%. So that's kind of the number that caused, once rates started moving above that, that's kind of the number that caused, obviously, affordability to decline.
Yeah.
And then prices come with it.
Right. And so let's jump down to the volume, because that's the kind of the conversation. Like, I'm at a dinner party, or I meet up with someone and they ask me like, man, there's like no houses for sale. Like, what happened to the volume? It's like we're either talking about volume, or they're just asking, hey, how's the market in general, right? And it's all depends on who you are, right? A buyer or a seller. But we look at some of the market that's just missing in action, I guess you could say. The volume is the story. That since May, we've seen over 5,000 fewer sales in the Sacramento region compared to last year. So volume of homes are down 29% to last year. But there's still been 13,000 sales. So, people focus on one stat. The market is still moving. We just have, a lot less buyers buying houses right now at this time of the year.
Do you have the inventory stat for that? Like how many days on market? Like how many months of inventory we have with that volume declining?
Yeah. I mean, we've gone up significantly. I think in some regions like 125%.
Well, yeah, there it is, 251%. But if you look at it,
Yeah.
like you look at this volume, we scroll down just a little bit and you look at just the volume, it's up 250%, but that was from 0.7 to 2.4.
Right.
And
still considered a buyer's market.
2.4 is pretty normal.
Yeah. It's still considered a buyer's market. And I think that's the distinction of re-educating people on looking between the buyer and the seller. I'm sorry. Yeah. Still a seller's market.
Yeah. It's still considered, and that's the thing. It's still considered a seller's market, yet everybody's acting like it's a buyer's market. And
right.
And I think that just because of the shock to the system of interest rates moving up so fast.
And that begs the question, when interest rates come down a little bit,
what's going to happen?
Yeah. What's going to happen? Buyers are going to be more active. I think the sellers are going to gain a little bit of power back. I think we're in that shock phase where, we go through for the next few months. And if interest rates do get a little better, I think we get back to a little closer to where we were before, as far as sellers not giving
volume activity, negotiating power, a balance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I'm talking about, is like, I don't want to sit here and make a prediction, but I do think that there's an interesting window that you have as a buyer right now, where like, if interest rates do drop, I'm not saying it's going to be a crazy frenzy and bananas again, but like, does it maybe shift a little bit more? Because if you look at this based on months of supply, meaning how many months of homes we have available, that stat says it's a seller's market.
Yeah.
Outside of what we're seeing in any market, that's a seller's market, but sellers are acting like it's a buyer's market right now. So if interest rates do move down to the fives, does the crazy swing in negotiating power that buyers have right now maybe go back a little bit, and not to a point where it's where it was in COVID, but where buyers are not getting $50,000 in credit to buy the interest rate down and do buy downs and get a lower price and have a carpet credit stuff. And I just wonder if there's this interesting little window that we have.
I couldn't agree more. So if you're a buyer looking on buying a house in 2023, listen up. Your ability to take advantage right now of the sellers that need to sell their house, that are willing to give discounts and concessions to buy down your rate and repairs. I have this conversation every single day. Buyers say, Brandon, I'm going to wait for the interest rates to come down. They're too high. Well, this conversation we're having around this, if the interest rates do come down 5% or under 5%, if that does happen, then you're going to be paying more for the house. And you may not be able to get those concessions. You may not be able to get that discount on the house. You may be paying more. And, one might argue, yeah, but it's a lower interest rate. But I don't know, Keith. I mean,
I'd say the other question would be too, is it's like, do you think that you're the only person thinking that?
I mean, I don't think a lot
You
of
know
people,
what I mean? Like I talk to everybody, that not everybody, but every clients I'm talking to that are wanting to wait. The reason they're wanting to wait is for rates to come down. And yeah, of course, like I get that, but I just wonder if there's an opportunity right now to get the seller to put the interest rate down to where you want it to be.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more that I believe there is a better opportunity for buyers than there has been in a long time. The serious ones that are
And look,
willing
like
to
this
look at
isn't
all
like
the
a
data.
guy just trying to, sorry, this isn't just like a guy just trying to sell a house or talk someone into this. Like if I wasn't in the home, like we're in our dream home, I love my home. I'm not moving. But if we weren't, like I would be buying a home in this market right now. I'd be taking advantage of the opportunity in this marketplace right now.
Yeah.
If I didn't have a home, I 100% would. And I'm looking at rental properties right now because I believe that there's still opportunities in there. So I believe that there's opportunity in this market. I'm not just trying to say this to sell somebody.
Yeah.
It's cool.
And that's fair. So Keith, let's hit him with some crazy stats. Let's talk about how many homes are underwater. Let's go into that.
Yeah, so homes underwater, right? So that was a stat I was looking at today, and I thought it was an interesting stat because so many people are worried about a bubble and and what happened before, and really a lot of homes were in distress. People didn't have equity, and so right now, I mean, it was 37% of homes in America have no mortgage on them. 37% of homes have no mortgage on them right now, and over half the homes have an interest rate less than 5% that have a mortgage. Right. So there's just so much stability in if an individual is in distress, right, they're not in a place where they have to distress sale for the most part. All right. And if you look at pre-bubble, so going back to that stat, 1.9% of homes are underwater right now, to compare that to pre-bubble, 25% of homes were under market. So 1/4 of the market was underwater pre-bubble. And so, of course, those houses went into distress when people lost their jobs, and then the economic collapse had people lost their jobs, companies closed. I mean, that's not something that's happening right now. I mean, companies are still hiring; they can't find people.
Yeah,
it's an interesting spot right now.
Man, it is, and that's why we do stuff like this, just to
totally
educate people on, hey, if you're thinking about making a move, consider these things. So we're kind of giving you those tips and those hot takes from guys that are doing it day in and day out and having conversations with people and knowing what's going on in the market. So let's hit them with a handful of buyer and seller tips. So in closing, we're going to wrap up here real soon, but I want to hit you guys with, hey, if you are, let's just start with buyers. If you're a buyer in 2023, what are these like 3 to 5 hot tips that we want to empower you guys with?
I mean, when we start, you start.
Yeah, I'll yeah, go ahead. You start.
So I mean, we've talked about it a lot, right? Lower prices and willing sellers willing to give concessions. So I mean, I think there's an opportunity right now to, just because you have the list price doesn't mean that's going to be the sell price. And I think there's, it's a different market where, you were overbidding and then it wasn't appraising. Right now
Right.
we're underbidding and it's appraising, and that presents opportunities. So, like, I would say don't worry about offending somebody. I've had conversations with buyers where they're like, I don't want to be offensive with that offer. Like, put the offer out there and see, like, if you're willing to pay for that and you think it's worth it, and see what they're willing to do, because sellers are willing to give concessions in this market right now. They're willing to come to the table if they're motivated sellers.
Sure. Number
Yep.
two hot tip for buyers is be aggressive, because the nice houses, the houses that are move-in ready in great locations, priced right, are moving still very quickly. So
Right.
that will never change. Houses that are in great locations, that are move-in ready, that people absolutely love, those are going to move quickly. So continue to be aggressive, because sometimes those houses may not be available tomorrow.
Correct. Like, you don't have to break your neck to get off of work to go try to see the house, but at the same point in time, if it's the house, you're probably not the only person thinking it's the house. And so we are still seeing some houses having multiple offers, and we're seeing a lot that don't. And then new homes, and this kind of cuts me out of the equation, but it's a realistic thing. I mean, it's because most new home builders have their own lender, but it's kind of coming into year, and they like to pad their numbers at the end of the year, and we're seeing some of these new home communities really want to move product, and they're, I mean, $50,000-$60,000 credits to buy the interest rate down, or reduce the price, or do upgrades to the property. I mean, they're really throwing in a lot of incentives right now. So don't discount that. But here's the jam. I think a lot of people walk into new home communities unrepresented, and unless you are an expert negotiator, right? You know how to negotiate these things, and you know what potentially can be. Like, if you walk into the builder, they're not going to just give you everything, right? They're not negotiating for you. The representative of the builder is negotiating for the builder.
Mhm.
And so you need somebody there to negotiate and represent you. And again, as a buyer, like, you don't pay your agent to represent
Yeah.
you in a new home build. The builder does. So if you're looking at new home stuff, look at new home stuff, one, and two, as part of that, like, make sure you have an agent helping you negotiate some of that stuff, because they see more than you see, and they know what's happening in markets.
And that's great. And just to add to that, make sure that they're with you on your first visit when you do go look, because I've seen people being taken advantage of time and time again, by someone that's
And
not
then when you come back with an
representing their
agent,
interest.
they'll say, look, you can
Mhm.
buy from us, but your agent can't help you negotiate. And you're like, what the heck?
Yep.
So
Yeah.
yeah, the
Super
seller
important.
wants to win. The seller wants to win, and the builder wants to win, and they sell a lot more houses than you do. I mean, be represented in that transaction.
So Keith, give us a bonus tip in regards to interest rates or loan programs, or what would be your number one hot tip on the lending side for buyers right now, that are looking to purchase in 2023?
Looking to purchase. Well, I think, I mean, the 2-1 and 3-1 buy downs are pretty awesome. I mean, that you can still get a 30-year fix, and let's say market rate right now is 5.99, or let's just say 6 to make it easy. I mean, you can get a seller to buy that interest rate down to 3 or 4% right now in the first year, and then it goes up the second year, and then it goes up the third year, and then it's fixed forever. So I think I think sometimes we say creative financing strategies. It's like a kind of a dirty word, and
Mhm.
it's not, right. Like, it's not an adjustable rate mortgage or a NAGAM loan that's going to
Right.
get you in trouble. We're just thinking creatively about the opportunities in front of us. So, look to use the concessions that you're getting to get you more affordable terms for the house.
Mhm.
And then there's a lot of lenders out there that are kind of offering to waive fees if you refinance later. And that's one of the things that we're doing as well, is we really believe interest rates can be lower on the horizon. So if you do buy with us today, like, be comfortable with the payment today, but we believe interest rates will be lower in the future. And so we're saying, hey, if you buy with us now and refinance with us later, we'll waive the lender fees in the refinance.
That's beautiful. I mean,
Yes,
saving
sir.
money is saving money.
Yes, it
Great.
is.
So I'm going to hit you with some seller tips real quick. I think the first and most important thing, which seems common sense, But now more than ever, you know, all the part-time agents have left the building, or most of them. So if you're a seller, you're looking to sell your home, you need a professional. And I'm not just
Yep.
saying somebody that has had a couple signs up in your yard. I'm saying you need a professional that knows how to negotiate, that knows how to market and creatively market, that's actually active on social media, that is putting out video content that's relevant, where they're able to actually bring buyers to the table. You know, that's more important than ever, is having an expert negotiator and having a professional, you know, listing your home. I believe that's super important now. Now that we're in this weird space where, you know, who you hire is just more important, because you want to sell your house for the most amount of money, and in most cases, the shortest amount of time.
I think a great question on top of that is, you know, when you're asking them, is how many price negotiations have you had to negotiate in your career? Because there's a whole heck of a lot of real estate agents out there that, you know, the part-timers are gone, but there's still some people that are full-time that have never negotiated a price reduction, or only negotiated a price reduction in this market, which is really the last 6 months.
Yeah.
So, you know, that you need to be able in this market, and the number of agents that have done that it's a small number, actually.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. So, you know, the second part of that is pay them what they're worth. You know, when you have an expert negotiator, you're typically going to make more money. Now, when we're talking percentage, if a traditional real estate agent gets paid 6%, when we had, you know, 3% to the buyer's agent, 3% to the listing agent, when we had iBuyers and they were around and they were, it was very common. They say, "Oh, I'll just go to Open Door." Well, that's not really a thing anymore. It doesn't make sense for them. They're not buying up houses like they were before. So
They're
a
actually
lot of
losing their short.
iBuyers. What's that?
They're actually losing their shorts.
Yeah, yeah, they are losing so much
So
money
much money.
month in, month out from what they bought houses for. So they're
Mhm.
not buying your house, okay? And that's important to know. But when they were doing that, you would have listing agents come in, and maybe you'd be able to negotiate a lower interest rate. It's like, "Oh, I'll just pay the buyer's agent less commission, and I'll just pay you a little bit less commission, and that's fine." And some agents were okay with that. But there were people that were listing the house, and maybe I'm getting too deep into it, but there were people that were listing their house and only paying the buyer's agent 2%. And so they were buyer's agents that wouldn't show the house to their potential buyers, because they weren't being paid the 2.5 or 3% that would be considered standard. And so when you look at paying the buyer's agent and you look at the listing agent and how they're going to market your property and negotiate and all that good stuff, pay them what they're worth. If you have the right skilled negotiator, listing agent on your side, chances are you're going to actually save money in the long run, instead of having an agent that may not verse in negotiating and marketing, and you're doing, you know, $25,000-$50,000 reductions consistently until you can sell your house. Now, that's depending on price point, of course.
I'm
But
gonna be a little more aggressive in this statement here,
I like
but
it.
I'm not a real estate agent. So I think, you know, in the market the last 2 years, you know, an agent discounting their price. I mean, I could, you know, if I'm sitting here as an agent, I'm like, man, I'm gonna put this thing on the market and it's gonna freaking sell. It's gonna sell in 5 days. It's gonna sell $30,000-$40,000 over list. I don't have a lot that I have to put into it. Sure, I'll discount my price. I'm still gonna make good money. We're gonna take care of these people, and it's not gonna be a lot of work. I think some agents discounting their price in today's market, you just need to be careful, because is it smart strategy, or is that a desperation? And I surely don't want a desperate real estate agent selling
Nope.
my home for me today. And I think that's really the difference right now in this marketplace is, your ability to sell a home in this market is directly related to the skill of your realtor. And someone who's willing to come in and discount their price, I wonder if it's more out of desperation than actual strategy in selling.
Yeah, good point. Well, a couple more here. So hot seller tip number 3, if you're planning on selling your home in 2023, do be willing to do inspections and potential repairs before you list your house, so you can use it in your marketing.
So
So
smart.
you can actually make sure that the house is in good standing order. You have less surprises. You have more negotiating power and letting people know that you've actually done work to the house.
So smart. So
Yeah.
smart.
Number 4, be willing to explore concessions to buyers for their interest rates, for repairs. We've kind of already covered that, but that's a big one, because if you're willing to do that up front, you're going to negotiate a deal in most cases faster, and you're most likely going to make more money in the long run. At least that's been my experience.
Yeah, man, you don't want to chase the market. I think of this as like a roller coaster, and people don't think about this a lot, right? But you're a roller coaster, and so like in a roller coaster, you're either in the front or you're in the back. And if you're in the front of it, you can potentially take advantage of that curve, right? But the problem is if you're in the back, you're chasing the market. And so, I think, when you're coming out of the gates, priced right, ready, concessions, in that window, you're not chasing the market. And when you start chasing the market, you've got to get ahead of it and then go maybe even deeper than you did before because you're chasing it. And it's a problem. The longer you sit in the market, then that's like all these things start compounding on the seller. The longer it sits, and the more times it goes in and out of contract, and you really start chasing the market. And you don't want to do that. You want to come out strong.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's 100% right. All right, 2 more. We're going to wrap it up here. Number 5, if you're buying a house, if you're selling a house and buying a house, which is often a lot of the families that we help, know your budget before you even start the process. Like, look at your budget, know what you can afford. Of course, meet with a trusted real estate professional to see how much money you would make from your sale, but really know your budget. I can't tell you how many times I've had conversations in the past few months where we've gone and we've talked about it, and they're already looking at new homes. They haven't even explored their budget. And by the time they actually look at the interest rates, it's just a huge letdown because it's not exactly what they anticipated or expected. And so, do that work up front so that you can start to plan and be excited rather than be let down. That makes sense.
Yeah, and then if I could add to that too, like just be open to think differently about your finances. I know, especially if you're a seller, maybe you've got a substantial equity position. We're often seeing, sellers want to just transplant all that equity into new property, which I get. But if you're sitting on some debt, you actually get a lot more purchasing power. Look at household monthly outgo as opposed to monthly mortgage payment. You might have an auto loan or a credit card that's got a 16% interest rate on it. Do we preserve some of the net proceeds and sell the property and eliminate that debt, saving you a whole heck of a lot more money than you would by putting all that down on the new purchase? And then maybe does it mitigate that difference? I got a 3% rate right now and I'm going to a 5. How do I offset that payment? Well, we might be able to offset that payment by paying off other debt. So I would say step back for a minute and look at like everything. And don't just get super hyper focused on that purchase.
Yeah, great. No, that's good. And that's something that Keith does really well and can help you with your overall financial outlook. So, all right, here's our last one. Bonus tip right here.
It's a good one. This is a good. Most people are going to look at you sideways on this one.
All right. If
are you crazy? Are you crazy?
Yeah, I know. If you're planning to sell your home in 2023, you have to know that this is controversial, but this is important because this is going to help you make the most amount of money possible.
I want to make the most amount of money possible when I sell my house, Brandon.
List your house under market value. It creates the auction effect. You are going to be seen as the best buy on the block. If you do these tips that we've talked about, we have 5 tips and this bonus tip right here. If you do that, you will make more money in almost every case. Be willing to take that risk. If you're going to do a reduction, if you get to that point where you have to reduce your house, you're not going to reduce it 5,000, 10,000 right now. You're going to be reducing it probably 15 to 20 minimum. So why not come out of the gate swinging and give yourself a chance to make more money on your sale than what you actually list it for? That right now, I think is going to make a huge difference in 2023. And let's face it, we'll see. But we appreciate you guys joining us today. We hope we brought value to you on what's going on in the market and what to expect. We will be back next month with another Sacramento real estate market update. And we'll be in 2024 at that point. It'll be,
we will. 2023. We could jump past 2023. Let's just get into 24. See what happens.
Year. We'll be in 2023.
It's a great year, 2023. Great year.
I know. It was killer. Thanks for joining us. My name is Brandon Leon, local realtor here in the Sacramento area.
Keith Collins, Moving Mortgage.
Keith Collins, Moving Mortgage. We will see you next time. Thanks so much, guys.
Take care, y'all.